Good morning, everybody. This is Robert Robinson with Linda Ossie and a couple other folks here in HUD Recap headquarters, starting our week off with a bang on the new resource desk. So hopefully everybody has been able to log on at least and check things out. So we've got some emails flying already today, but wanted to get going on the training. So this is the first of a series of trainings that we're going to be doing for all of the various user groups. So we're excited to kick it off with the transaction managers. So transaction managers includes all the readiness transaction managers and the financing transaction managers, and so they should all be participating here today. So wanted to make sure that we've got a good basis of knowledge. So we're going to start with just kind of the general look of the new resource desk. I know some of you have seen this already, but we've changed the resource desk now to prioritize both RAD for PHAs and RAD for multifamily in the same weighting. So you'll see these two boxes with the spokes that we've got on the screen now. Both of these, while they look the same, take you to slightly different information. So I'm just going to do a quick kind of walkthrough of all the various ones for you now, so that you can kind of see what the general public sees. And notice we're not logged in yet, so there's a lot of additional information for general public consumption at the moment. So Linda, if you could go to the document library first. So to make things easier for people to get to, we've created some subsections inside of the document library based on kind of where you are and what you're trying to find out about. So if you're brand new to RAD, you would go into the Getting Started with RAD, and you would expand that area and see what we have there as far as the document library goes. Okay? If you're well into RAD and you're trying to work on a financing plan, again, we are, as a public user, only able to see kind of these subsections, but if you were logged in, you would see a lot more based on this area. So we're going to show that to you later in the presentation. So if you go back to the home page, Linda. Similarly, we've created a spoke for trainings. So if you select the trainings, we've also created this same set of criteria, and then all of the various trainings inside of those sections will appear. For those of you who are long-time RAD participants, you'll know that Recap does a great job of producing trainings and documents and guidance, and it's been a little bit challenging to find things sometimes when you're looking for them. So hopefully this new reorganization will help with that. Okay? So let me go back to the home page for me. We've also created a change in some of the searching functionality. So if you go over to the search spoke, we've created, again, there's a theme here, categories. So we've broken things into what we believe are more logical categories. And so when you're looking for information about rehabilitation, for example, you will see first at the top, you'll see where that's listed in the notice. So this, when you then expand that, this is the actual citation taken directly from the notice. Recap wants everyone to use the notice as kind of the starting point for all information and all research, and so that's why that's listed at the top. If there are any documents that were publicly available on rehabilitation, those would show next, and then all of the regular questions and answers that you all are used to getting, they would show up after that. Okay? We've also made a change to include all of the notices related to RAD in one location. So when you click on the notices spoke, you'll see here at the top, these are all of the notices that have anything to do with RAD, in particular the most recent version of the RAD notice, Rev 3, as well as a black line version of that, so you could see any changes that have been made since then. You'll also notice that the fair housing notice is there at the bottom, and in the interest of full disclosure, any other RAD-specific or integrated notices will be published here as well. Then below that, you actually have the entirety of the RAD notice. So if you wanted the whole thing, scroll up just a hair. If you wanted the whole thing, you could, of course, download the PDF, but we've created this kind of table of contents, if you will, that you can then plus, minus, and expand the areas that you're most interested in looking at. So this is the entire notice, but broken up a little bit more easily for people to review. And we think this is going to be easier for people to find what they're looking for, hopefully. Okay. Just to show you that we didn't forget about the RAD for multifamily folks, if if you click on the document library over there, you'll see that these are all RAD for multifamily, or used to be known as RAD second component. We're trying to rebrand this a little bit and have focus on the various participants, and so this is a RAD for multifamily piece. Also, you can apply directly through the resource desk now in both cases. We're working on making sure that that link is live for the RAD for PHAs, but on the RAD for multifamily side, that link, you have to sign in to do it, so that's why it's not working. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's a good time to change to the other side anyway.
Okay, so those are some of the major changes just on the general public side. And now we're going to log in. But before we log in, I want to mention one of the kind of new features of the resource desk, which is that participants who have multiple logins today will find, or had multiple logins yesterday, will find that they have single logins today. That's particularly important for a number of your readiness transaction managers who also participate as consultants for or other RAD transactions. So all of my enterprise friends out there that are listening in, you will now have a single login that will cover both your readiness work that you're doing for recap, as well as any direct work you're doing for other PHAs. So you won't have to have the long list of passwords that you've had to remember for different logins. You'll be able to do that. So
your readiness TM password is the one that should work.
Okay.
If it doesn't, or if I miss that and I transition you incorrectly, just drop me a note at the resource desk and we'll get it straightened out for you.
Absolutely. So this was a very important upgrade for us, but it was a challenge, and so we do know that there are some hiccups there. So we think we've gotten most of them, but we will definitely run into problems because there are lots of multiple users out there. But we think this is going to be great for people. You won't have to remember all these long series of passwords for different logins. Okay?
And if you are also act as a consultant for the multifamily / second component side, we did not consolidate those. So you will still have your old multiple logon IDs for second component. We're working on that, but that one's a little more complex because of the user-owner relationship.
Right. All right. So now we're going to log in as a transaction manager. Really? Linda doesn't want me to log in.
You are going to be live.
Oh, it won't work. It won't work live because that's calling. Robert's calling on the live site. So that's why it's not going to work.
Well,
It's going to use a different one. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
All right. So we'll log in as somebody else. Hold on. We'll log in as. Go ahead and use Nancy. She's already in there. You have already forgotten the beauty of the new single login. All right. So now we're logged in as a transaction manager. And the first thing that you'll notice is we have created a whole, all right, hold on, go ahead and check the question. So logged in as a transaction manager, in the top section you see that we've added this search bar. We think this is going to be really great for people to be able to pull various information both on their transactions and other transactions. So let's go ahead and pull up, let's go with Ohio, and let's pull up all the Ohio transactions that have RCCs issued, Linda. So here it gives you an entire list of all the transactions in the state of Ohio that have an RCC issued on them. So one of the things that you'll notice is on the far right-hand side, the category or the status, RAD status is there, and it's color-coded. So if we go back up and we take the RCC issued off, we just pull up all transactions in Ohio, we now get all the statuses, and we'll notice that they're all color-coded. One of the things that we've done is throughout the resource desk, we've kept this color coding so that anywhere you go, whether you're looking at a search on all the properties in RAD or you're own universe, you'll see this status and this color coding, so it's very quick, very easy for you to see and scan what the status of a RAD transaction is. So we think that's going to be really helpful for people. In addition, if you wanted to work with this outside the resource desk, you can easily dump this into Excel and manipulate it from there, or if you're creating a report for somebody and you just want to send it out to them, you can create a PDF. And so that's something that we think is going to be great. Okay.
So Robert, what's different from before is that this transaction manager can pull up these transactions even if they're not assigned to this transaction manager.
That's correct. Yeah, they can see everything now. Yeah. All right, so let's minimize this. So close our little search bar. So then we have the rest of the cards for the transaction manager, and you'll notice that we have a notifications card, transactions assigned card, and then for those of you who review financing plans, you'll have a financing plan reviews assigned. So let's just open all those up, Linda. Okay, so in no particular order, since we're already down at the financing plan review side, these are all the transactions where financing plan has been submitted, and this transaction manager is working through those. If you're not a financing transaction manager, you're not going to get this card. Okay, so for all the enterprise folks, you all won't have this card because you don't do financing plan reviews. Okay, so scroll back up. On the right-hand side, these are all the transactions that are assigned regardless of your role. So if you're a readiness transaction manager on some and a financing transaction manager, regardless, you're going to see all the transactions associated with that particular PHA. So Linda clicked on the PHA name, that takes you straight to the PHA page, or what we used to kind of call the readiness page, where you'll have all of their transactions. This should all look the same as you did before, but just presented a little bit differently. And you won't go to the readiness / concept call checklist directly from here. You actually go through that through each transaction. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So if you click on the PHA ID, this then lists things by transaction. So if you are going to look and work on the readiness / concept call checklist, you click on Castleman Apartments, and you see that you come straight to, go back to the top just for a second, you come straight to the readiness checklist page. The system knows where you need to go because the financing plan has not been submitted yet, so this is logically where you're going to be working. If the financing plan had been submitted, you would have gone to the financing plan page. Okay? Like before, the checklists are all there. Since Nancy's not assigned this transaction, she can only see the results. She can't edit them. But if you were the TM assigned to this, you'd be able to edit all these. So this is a read-only for her. Okay? So this is a good time for me to talk about the new kind of navigationing of the resource desk. And you'll notice below the main bar, there's a secondary bar that has a list of items. Go to action items, transaction documents, and then transaction pages, and then contacts. So I'm going to actually start with the contacts. This is a new piece that a lot of people asked for. A lot of user groups, not just inside the recap office, but inside of HUD and PHAs, etc. And so we added this kind of directory, if you will, of all of the folks that are working on this transaction, both inside of HUD and outside of HUD. So here you can find, if this transaction was in closing, you would find the OGC attorney, the closing coordinator. You also find all of the PHA folks on the first page that Linda scrolled through. So these are all of the people that are affiliated with this particular transaction. So here you've got all the PHA contacts in one place. So very easy for you to bounce around and find everybody that you need. Okay. So then the next series of drop-down menus, we've really kind of gone through to try and determine how best people navigate to different things. And so the transaction pages, you can think of those as kind of your working, where you go to do work. Okay, and so in this case, we're already on the readiness / concept call checklist. So we could go there, or if we wanted to, I don't want to do this, but if we wanted to go to the PHA summary that Linda went to first, we could go there. Or if the financing plan has been submitted, or we want to see what the status of the financing plan is, we can click on the financing plan. Go ahead and do that. And that takes you to the familiar financing plan grid. If you scroll down, Linda, the financing plan documents section. So this grid is just replicated here, and all of the things that you've that you used to do here, we've done the same place. The PHA will come in, upload their documents, they can make comments, the TM can make comments back, so everything that you'd like to do here will still be done here. But as Linda's scrolling down, what if I want to go to a section that's not showing up and I don't like to do all this scrolling? Well, we've added a go-to drop-down, which takes you to the various cards inside whatever transaction page you happen to be in. So we're in the financing plan page, so these are the cards that I can go to. So if I want to go back up to the property summary, I just click here rather than having to scroll all the way to the top. I click there, it takes me back to the top. Okay, well, Linda, let's go back to the readiness concept call page. Similarly, the go to here box at the top just has two sections. So if I'm in the property section and I want to go straight down to the checklist, I can click on that. Or if I'm in the checklist and I'm way down at the bottom and I don't want to scroll back to the top, but I want to go back to the property summary, I just click there and it takes me back up to the property page. Okay? So that's a piece that we think is going to help a lot of people going back and forth between the blue bars and not using the back button sometimes and all that sort of thing. This is going to make, we think, navigation a lot easier for people to get through. Okay? Continuing on the transaction pages, just so that people know what's going on, this is still where you will see all of the various information that you're used to seeing. So if you want to see the public housing, what's going on with the public housing folks, you click there and you go to their page. Okay? If you want to see what's happening with an FHEO review, you go to the FHA review page and you'll see all that information there. Okay? Go to the financing plan section for a minute. One of the things, if you go to the approval RCC execution, scroll down just a hair. So one of the things that we've noticed from a HUD user perspective, and this isn't just recap, but it's your colleagues in FHEO and PIH, there's been a need for the ability to delete some files that you all have uploaded. For some reason, you've uploaded the wrong document. You need to delete that document, and you want to put a new document up there. This does not apply to PHAs, just so everybody's aware. PHAs can still not delete documents. But if you were the transaction manager on this transaction and you had uploaded a relocation checklist, so let's do that, Linda. Let's go choose file. Oh, we can't. Yeah, she's not assigned to this. Let's go.
She should be. No, she is.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to a financing plan review because I think she'll do that there. Let's go back to her home page. Let's do one that she's been assigned a financing plan. Okay, so now let's go down to the financing plan, the approval section. So go to approval RCC execution. All right, so scroll down a little bit more.
Yeah, I think on the dev site for some reason I'm totally let down.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, that you would be able to download the file, and then a little trash can would show up. You can then delete that folder, that file from the site. So we're hoping that you don't have to use that very often, but that is something that you all asked for and that we added to this page. Okay. All right. Let's go back to her home page again. So don't scroll down. So at the moment, Nancy doesn't have any notifications. But this card to the left, when a financing plan has been submitted for her review, or when she's been assigned a financing plan for review, or after a financing plan has been submitted, a new document is uploaded, a notification, the email would still go out as it always does, but she would get a notification when she logged in saying, new document's been uploaded for Castleman Gardens, and she can easily click there and go look at it if she wants to. Also, for approvals, for extensions, those sorts of things, those notifications will come here just as a reminder. Again, it's not replacing the emails that you've been getting from the resource desk, but just as a reminder that that's happened here. Okay? So if you were logged in, you requested an extension, and your team lead went in and approved the transaction while you were still on the resource desk, you wouldn't get that notification. It's only only going to happen after you log in, post that approval being given to you. Okay, I think this is going to be particularly helpful during the approval processing for financing transaction managers, where you're going back and forth with your branch chief, and I know that I get a little overwhelmed with the emails back and forth, and I forget whether it's back in my court or not. So when I log in, you'll see very easily, yes, this has been sent back to me for changes, and you can go in and make those changes and then advance it forward. Okay. So a couple of other things that we've done generally on the resource desk that impact the TMs greatly are in the transaction log. So Linda, let's go just grab any of these transactions. And over on the transaction pages, we'll see the transaction log. And you'll see just first and foremost that we now only have 3 columns. So we've created these columns with the hope that this will simplify both the entry by the PHAs and the review and approval by the transaction managers. So in this particular case, the financing plan has been submitted, but it's not been approved and the RCC hasn't been issued. So the PHA is working in the financing plan column. Okay? All of the changes that they make are done here, and they go back and forth just like they used to and update them. And then finally, when this transaction gets approved and the RCC gets issued, then this column is locked. And there's a note that comes in that second row that says, columns locked, RCC has been issued. Then all of the back and forth between the PHA and the closing coordinator will then happen in this column. This will be great, particularly in cases where significant changes have been made between RCC issuance and closing, and the transaction manager is involved in determining whether or not that's okay. They'll easily be able to go and see, for example, that $10 million of other income was added, and is that okay? They'll see that there was none there before because the financing plan column's locked down and can't be changed, so they'll easily see the change, and that'll be easy for their review. Then from a closing coordinator perspective, and also from a TM perspective, because they don't want to be asked all the time if they've approved it, we've added a checkbox so that the TM checks this box after they've reviewed whatever changes were there and have approved them, then that checkbox is done. The closing coordinator then has a section on their page that will show, without them having to go back to the transaction log, they'll see very clearly that the TM has approved the changes to the transaction log. If, as I know happens all the time, the PHA then comes back and makes another change after the TM has already approved that, then that box is automatically unchecked, and the TM will have to come back and do that again. So it'll be very clear for everybody in participating in this to know whether it's been reviewed or not, whether it's been approved or not, and kind of where things are. Once the transaction then closes, this middle column is locked down, and no changes can be made, and then the column on the right would be there for any post-conversion updates that need to be made to the transaction log. But it'll be very easy to now see what was approved at the financing plan and what the as-closed numbers are.
Right, Robert, when does the first column get locked down?
So the first column is locked down when the RCC is issued. Okay. So as soon as the RCC is issued and it's moved over to the closing team, then that column locks down and no changes can be made to that anymore. Okay.
When we moved the data,
oh, right. Yes.
If your financing plan had not been submitted yet, you will need to re-enter, the PHA will need to re-enter that data. It did not come over. We did not move any application data over or.
Right. Yeah. Since the application data 100% of the time changes, we did not update that, and we just felt like that since this is a new piece of the resource desk that is critical to kind of the new data gathering exercise, we made that decision. So anybody who has submitted a financing plan or the RCC has been issued, data's moved over where it ought to. But where a financing plan has not been submitted, there's no data there. Okay. Yes.
With the new double screen concept in the RAD resource desk, are you going to be able to move one over and open up a different portion in the RAD resource desk, or it's just going to automatically, when you want to go to another one, it'll close up the one you're in?
As you go from page to page?
Yeah, so say I'm on this page here, and I want to move it over to my right side of the thing, and then I want to open up some PHA information for some reason.
No,
especially in the post-closing.
A few things like the contacts or pop-ups, but otherwise it just is one window.
Okay.
Well, that's a good piece that I forgot to mention when I was walking through the bars across the top. So I mentioned the transaction pages are where we're working. So the transaction documents and data, this is information that has been produced by something else. This isn't work that you're doing, but it's the result of other work. So for example, when you want to find the sources and uses, instead of having to go some other page, you're going to go here. We did have a lot of problems with it last night, so I'm not surprised that that's not working. So, and she's probably working on it right now, but see if the pro forma will pull up. Nope, okay.
We are on the dev site,
Yeah, right.
so we can not mess up.
But go to the chat.
I can go to like,
Yep.
yeah, I can go where you want.
Sure. So this is familiar to everybody. So now you click on the chaps section, you now see all of the various chaps and the amended chaps. So this will be how you'll get to those documents, again, without having to go back and forth to all these different places. Yep, questions? Currently, readiness TMs can no longer see status of projects once their client statement has been accepted. Will that change now and be able to see the status? Yes. Yes, so you'll be able to see all the statuses of the various transactions simply by looking at, if I go back to transactions assigned to me, so Linda, let's go to the home page. Yep. So if I was a readiness TM and I was looking at transactions assigned, I would click on Illinois 002, and there on the far right, that's the status of all the transactions. So if I was the readiness TM on Pomeroy Apartments, Pomeroy Apartments would still be listed in my portfolio, but you would see the RCC issued. Okay, Henry Horner Block is closed. I would see the closed transactions. One of the things that you will no longer see is you're no longer going to see withdrawals. Withdrawals have been taken off for everybody except PHAs. PHAs will be able to see withdrawn transactions, but withdrawn transactions have caused too many problems for too many folks. People trying to do work in withdrawals and that sort of thing. So we've taken that, the ability to see a withdrawn transaction is gone, and the ability to, for a PHA, while they can see it, they cannot work in it. They'll not, everything will be locked down. They won't be able to upload anything into those documents. Okay. Good question, so thank you for that. Another big feature on the transaction log that we've updated are the sources. The recap office and various iterations wants more concise information as far as sources and sources go, and so we've updated this to allow for that. So Linda, if you click on sources. So now the sources are broken into 4 categories: hard debt, soft debt, grants, and equity. So when a PHA goes in to enter the sources, they'll determine which of those 4 categories the source is going to be in, and then they'll go in and complete the information associated with that. For example, if they're going to add hard debt, they're going to put the lender's name. They'll put whether or not it's a first lien or not. They'll then give the source of that. So in this particular case, since Linda has typed in Chase, this is going to be a non-FHA loan. It could have been the PHA, and it could have been out of their operating funds. Then she can put in the dollar amount, the loan term in years, the interest rate, and then whether or not the lender's consented, and then when she hits the submit button, that line goes to the top. So important feature, if they decide to not use this anymore and change it, we've added a little delete box so that the source can be deleted. Okay, they can also edit it here or add another one. Okay, you'll notice, if you scroll down, Linda, you'll notice that in all of the sources, we've been consistent and kept all of the same. We're hoping that that will mean that people will get comfortable with all these different sources and be able to update things appropriately. You'll also notice that we've taken away the ability for PHAs to enter a quote-unquote other. This has been very problematic in the data gathering and precision of the data. For example, many PHAs, instead of using the deferred developer fee line item in the sources that we had given in the past, would actually type in deferred developer fee in the other category and then add that there, which made it impossible for recap to pull data on developer fee because it was now coded in another category. So we've kind of gotten rid of that. One of the things that we'll be telling the PHAs when we train them, and we'll be telling everybody when we're going through this, if for some reason somebody feels like there needs to be a new category added, or they just can't make it work into one of the categories that we have. They'll need to email the resource desk, and RECAP will make a determination at that point how it should be added. So that's how that's going to be handled. Okay. The other great thing about entering this information, so we have so much specific data, the PHA is no longer going to have to submit separate financing templates. So Linda clicks on the Generate Financing Templates box, and the financing template is there based on the information that was provided. Okay, so that hopefully eliminates any confusion. This also eliminates the need for any notes to be written in the sources on the RCC. That whole section's going away because all of this information now is being captured at the time of financing plan. So all the data that's necessary and all the things that need to be updated and all that sort of thing are all placed here. Okay. So I think that's everything in the sources and uses that we've changed. And just as Linda's scrolling down to the uses. So we have expanded some items and added some new things and created some subcategories. So hopefully this will be easier for people to enter. We're hoping that this will be clearer for folks.
Robert, it's really minor, but it's important that the current transaction log that was in effect prior to this weekend, that you didn't see the subcategories as easily as you see now. Go down for a minute, Linda, to reserves. So previously, they weren't bracketed like that.
Correct.
So right. Now it makes it easier for us to see the different subcategories.
Yeah. Another question. All right, so there's a question about saving comments on the financing plan grid. So we'll take a look at that. I believe that there's a save button. There may not be a save button in that section, but I thought there was a save button at the bottom, so we'll double check on that. Next question about grants typically structured as soft debt in a loan and housing tax credit deal. They can enter soft line. That's correct. Yeah. That's exactly right. Okay. I think you eliminated that by closing that. You locked it off. So go back, open that back up. I don't want the questions. The questions, I think we actually closed that altogether.
Oh, did you have more?
Yeah, go to the way to the top. Yeah. Is there another question?
I don't think there's one after soft.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All right. Then let's see what we want to talk about next. Oh, okay. So now another big change on the approval RCC data section. So the approval processing has been working great, and we've all been pleased with that. But the piece that's kind of been a bit of a challenge has been the transition from the approval, getting the approval and creating the RCC generally. All right, so let's just go to the live site and work through it on that. I'm not going to make any changes. Did you actually go to the live site? I don't think
no, you're
that's
right.
Just go see if it works. See if it magically works. No.
Yeah, so much for that.
Sorry. All right, so let's work on whichever one. Okay, so we've all gotten comfortable with the approval processing section, but we were struggling with the creation of the RCC. And so what we've done in the new resource desk is we've moved all of the questions that were answered for the RCC up into the approval processing section. And so this big box that we've added is one that everyone should be familiar with, because this didn't live on the approval processing page before, and now is here. This was only completed in the RCC section. So the goal is for the TM to go through all of the various questions on the approval processing section, and then all of the back and forth with their team lead, then move it in a delegated transaction. It goes to Greg. He does his review. Once it's approved, that's it for the transaction manager. The transaction manager will no longer have to produce the RCC package. That will be produced by admin staff working with Greg, and so that will create the whole cover memo, RCC, approval memo, all those pieces that need to be moved along through the signature process will be handled away from the transaction manager's involvement. So we think that's going to be a really great piece of this. So just as we're working through this, again, make sure that we're working together to make sure all those pieces are put together. One of the things that I want to point out, and we're doing a financing TM training tomorrow on this, but it's very important for transaction managers to fill out all of the information on this page to make sure that all of the things are flowing through properly. Okay. So one of the things that we have added that I think everyone's going to be excited about is if you go to the Go To feature and we go down to the scope of work, we've now added the ability for the transaction manager, instead of having to type in the scope of work, as was done in this particular case, they'll actually be able to go to hit the upload scope of work data. They'll actually go to this page, choose a file that's generated from, don't do it because we wouldn't update it, but choose the file that was generated from the validation engine in the new CNAE tool, choose that file, and hit the button to update the scope of work, and that data will all move forward. Okay? So that will eliminate the need for all of the typing that's been having to happen. So in this particular case, Nancy only had to type 4 or 5 lines, but I know Arnold was working on a transaction that had probably 60 lines, so he wasn't going to be happy about having to type all of that.
So Robert, to reiterate, and also just stress the importance of, in the Excel tool, or the e-tool, sorry, that you have to make sure that that includes the scope of work for the transaction.
Absolutely. But luckily, that's generated from the tool, and TMs can easily get that from the validation engine. So, and we'll walk through specific training on that at another time. But that's a good. Maybe we'll do it later once we finish this up. Okay, so another thing to remember is when RCCs expire in the new resource desk, as soon as that button is clicked, then the transaction is going to come back to the transaction manager and fall into their portfolio. So if you go up to Nancy's page, and if she had a transaction that the RCC expired today and the closing coordinator kicked it back, it's going to come all the way back to her and be pending for a financing plan submission. So all those documents that were uploaded before will be wiped out, and they'll all show right back up, and it'll show up, scroll down, Linda. It'll show up here in our transactions assigned section. Okay. So a couple of things that I wanted people to be aware of from the PHA perspective is the fact that they can now apply directly through the resource desk. So Linda, you want to log in? What's the best way to look at this? You want to just log into the PHA? So in the past, I think most of you are aware, the RAD application was an Excel spreadsheet that lived on the HUD website by state. PHAs would download that spreadsheet, select the stamp they're applying for, and then submit that to the RAD application's email box. Going forward, PHAs will create a login on the resource desk. They'll then sign in, and they have a series of cards, one of which is applications. So they will then be able to create a new application. They'll be able to select a property for them and start the application process. Okay? So go back to the home page. If they haven't, if they had an application in process now, those applications would be listed, and it would say under review. Okay, so that will also give the PHAs a little bit more transparency as to where they are in the process. Okay, it will also mean that the resource desk data that's being captured will actually show. Don't go anywhere. Just pause there for a second. All the data that will be on the resource desk will now be inclusive of the application. So in the past, there was always a bit of a lag for the resource desk, since it only showed CHAP issuance. You didn't know exactly where you were against CAP and that sort of thing. Now, with the inclusion of RAD applications, recap management and others will be able to see very quickly where things are in relationship to CAP. One of the reasons that I wanted Linda to stop and stay here was you could see that the PHA does in fact have the ability to see their withdrawn transaction. They have their closed transactions. Scroll back up. This PHA has got some RCCs issued, financing plan unsubmitted. So they have a nice portfolio that they're working through. But if for whatever reason they needed to access information that was in the withdrawn transaction, they could at least see it. They can't do anything with it, but they can see it. Okay. What else, Linda, on this? Okay. So I did want to take a minute, and I'm hopeful that we have, that I've saved somewhere, and I can show people how to do the scope of work upload. So let's do that. Let's log out of here. So open up the Internet Explorer. And go to my favorites. CNAE tool, Gold Star guy. Is that right? Yep. Yep. All right. So in order to get the scope of work to upload, you would find the file that you have. So let's hit Browse. And I believe I saw Victory Haven on one of my downloads. Click on the Downloads file folder to the left. There we go. So you select the CNAE tool that was sent to you. You then validate that. So as that's validating, one of the things that I talked to the Chicago staff about when I was there last, whenever you're saving any files down from the validation engine or the tool itself, I'm finding it very problematic to use underscores and dots and all those sort of things. So I've been, from a naming convention, I've been getting very simplistic. So I would have saved this as Victory Haven tool or something like that, just so, because I found that the validation engine can be a little bit wonky on things. So now I've validated it. And so what I want to do is I want to go to the critical, so the non-critical repair needs tab, expand that, and I want to export this. And I can save as, and I'm going to save it as my non-critical repair needs is great. Let's save it to my desktop. Okay. So then I can close that. I can get out of the validation engine altogether. So Linda, you can close that box. And then if you minimize this, open up a non-critical just so we can see it. So this is the spreadsheet that's created through the validation engine that has a list of all of the items that are going to be included in rehab at the property. And so then this file is what you would link to and use to upload the scope of work, and all of this information will be able to be uploaded in there. So you no longer have to type all these things in. Okay? Excuse me.
Robert, currently when the TMs prepare the RCC, they don't include columns D, E, F, G. It's really just the scope of work, you know, and the cost. They don't include the alternative name, but when they upload this, should they be including all of it, or do you? So
they just take this file and upload this file. There's no need to edit this file at all. So the system knows which columns we're using, and it pulls those. Yep, absolutely. Yep, there's no reason for them to do this at all. We built it off of this platform.
Okay.
Yep, So there's no need. All they need to do is save the file down just like we did.
Yep.
They don't even have to actually open it. I just opened it to show them what it was.
Yep.
They save it down to their desktop or their folders, whatever they're doing, and then when they're in the resource desk, they go in, select this file, and upload it. There's no manipulation necessary on their end. Okay?
Beautiful.
It knows exactly what to pull in. Okay? All right, that was all generally I had. A couple of reminders that I wanted to make. First and foremost, we're live, but we know there are going to be bumps in the road. We've already had some today. We're going to have them throughout the week. We're going to have them throughout the next month. We ask that you just be patient with us, and we'll get the changes made as quickly as we can. But if it's not broken, and it's just something that looks a little strange, or you're not getting the exact results that you thought you were going to get, we'd ask that you take notes, and after a few weeks or even a month, send us a list of things that you're not liking so much, or that you're liking a lot, you'd like to see in a different place, that sort of thing. And we're going to definitely have another session with all of the various user groups, probably by the end of October, just to kind of see how things are going and see what changes we may need to make from there. But again, if it's broken, I want to know that immediately. If you really can't do something, send us a note. We'll get on the horn. We'll figure it out for you. We know people are processing transactions now, and there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to get that through. So we'll be able to figure it out. But stylistical things, and could you say this instead of this, that sort of thing, we're not going to be focusing a lot of attention on that at the moment. We're going to continue to be monitoring the resource desk website and an email account. So that's probably the best way to get your questions answered. So send it in there. But if you've got something urgently, most of you all have my email. I know you can send me an email, or Linda, or somebody that you know in recap, and we'll get to you. Okay. Any other questions or comments or things? Anybody in the room on the phone? Linda?
Just want to mention that PHAs are going to also upload their closing documents now. So if their PHAs have a question.
That's a great point. Yes. So we're doing the PHA training next. That's our next one. And one of the big changes for them is all of the closing documents are going to get uploaded into the resource desk. So you might want to be reminding your PHAs, those of you who are reviewing financing plans now and you're getting close to approval, remind them that change is coming. We think it's going to be easier for folks, but certainly that is a change. Instead of sending in closing documents on a CD or hard copy, God forbid, they're going to be sending electronic versions of everything through the resource desk. So that'll be a big change for them. Yeah, thanks, Linda. Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you all for your time, and we're excited about the resource desk. We think that the improvements are going to be great. I think that the navigation will be a lot easier for everybody, and hopefully it's smooth sailing for everybody. So thanks again, and this will be posted. We're recording this, so it'll be posted for anybody who couldn't participate. You can let them know that they can go to the webinars under the training section. So if you click on the training section, all of the webinars are in here. So all of the various webinars will be listed in these sections. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.